So yeah, it's my first time doing it as well. So
Great. Thanks, Richard.
My name's Connor, and I'm doing the level 1 as well.
As well? Okay.
Yeah, so I was doing the same reason Richie.
Okay, you're moving into module
Level
3.
3, yeah.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Collier.
Hi,
I'm a
Elizabeth.
parent here and a member also.
Mhm.
I'm involved running Junior Champs, which is held every year in August.
Okay,
So anything that can help dealing with parents and children
great.
during that week would be useful.
Okay. Odette.
Hi, I'm Odette. Again, member, parent, volunteer,
Very you can prepare with the notebook and so am I, that's why I don't have one.
I'm doing one at the moment. Getting involved in constantly, as we said, we'll be here till about 10 minutes.
Because if the family are involved, for example, in tennis, it's easier for the children to come down as well, and everybody to join in together. And peers dislike of the coach. That we're all human. We can have clashes, and not necessarily like the way we're being communicated to by the coach in the group. And then health benefits. Girls know the benefits, but still seem to drop out of the sport, which is a big issue. Does anyone else, from any of the other groups, have anything to add there? Stay calm and don't react emotionally. It can be, hugely difficult to be put in a really difficult situation like that, where a child is explaining an issue of abuse to you. But it's important to stay as calm as possible, and don't straight away, take out a piece of paper and start writing your notes, because that will just terrify the young person as well. It's important to take the child seriously. There's lots of research that has been done on adult survivors of situations of abuse, and the majority of the adults, I think there's a figure of something like 8 in 10, during their childhood they revealed the situation of abuse to another adult, but they weren't taken seriously. Or it wasn't acted upon. So there has been situations where people have reported that they did try to seek help, or did try to bring it up in a setting. And also to remember that children rarely tell lies. For them to come to you and to disclose something that's quite serious, it takes a lot of courage, and it means that they also trust you as well. So it's important to be open and just take an account or listen to the child.
Can I just ask? Oh yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh yeah. So yeah, this can be quite difficult as well, because possibly the first thing a child will want you to do is to keep that information for yourself, because there's huge fear around the consequences, or how it could upset. The child is always going to be thinking of people around them and how it could affect them. So it's important that you don't at any stage promise to keep that information to yourself. But in a very sensitive way, try to explain to the child that this information will only go to the designated officer or the authority, and it will be kept completely confidential and dealt with in a very sensitive way. Again, make no judgmental statements, and use open and non-specific questions, and explain what happens next. So this just refers to the Code of Ethics and Good Practice for Children in Sport, and the section within the code, should a child disclose or reveal a secret to you of a case of abuse.
I remember when I was taking this course a couple of years ago, and this particular, we had a case study that really made you blow the well. But what I really took from that is, if the child comes to you in complete trust and tells you, I need to tell you something because I trust you, and please keep it as a secret.
Yeah.
If you were to go, even though you don't promise anything, but if you were to go and disclose what the child said, you are breaking that trust and even harming the child even more.
That makes sense.
Is that through because
I would agree with that. I think that it takes a hell of a lot of courage to talk to somebody, and if a child decides to trust in you, then I think you should honour that trust and be as open as possible, and listen first of all, and then explain what the next steps are or what you're going to do
but
depending
they
on the
insist,
situation.
don't say anything to anyone.
I would inform the child that that we have to take steps because the situation, can't continue. We need to protect you, and that your protection and your welfare is the most important thing here. So we need to reassure the child, but it is important not to make any promises or keeping secrets.
Yeah.
Or if it's something that is, if they're still there and there's a moment to go up, that can be difficult, and I wouldn't necessarily think that would be the most ideal thing to do, but I certainly would bring the authorities in pretty much immediately. Would you agree on that?
Yeah, you bring the authorities in, but that might be just too late.
And I think
Absolutely.
in my position, I will just depend on the situation, but not that case. I think that I will approach straight away to stop
Yeah,
that situation.
yeah.
And then it's that one we were talking about, like just straight away who is around, who saw it, and
Yes.
we have to fix that one before. We're talking about that maybe the car was leaving already or something. Like it's just something that has to be approached
Yeah.
immediately
Yeah.
until that situation is stopped.
It is a difficult one, and everybody has their own, reaction, I suppose, and it just depends on who you are. Whether you think you would be able to go up and confront the father, but we also need to consider our own personal care as well, and but of course everybody, in a situation you can't tell exactly what you do. If this is something that is going to, is continuing in front of you, and you have, again, it's not our position to make a judgment. We're not required to make a judgment. We're just there to highlight to bring attention if there is a concern. So the first protocol would really be to check in with the child.
But as a parent, we didn't feel
Of course, it
that would be
depends on,
appropriate,
yeah,
that it's okay for a coach to do it, but not as a parent on the
yes,
sideline.
yeah.
You might know the child or
Yeah, so it can be difficult as well to do that. So, also you could possibly bring it to the attention of the parent if, in this case, it is the coach who's noticed it or the sports leader. It could be something that you could bring up with the parent. Maybe, the parent was, it just depends on the reaction that you receive as well, and it can be quite delicate. So if you feel that it's something that you don't necessarily feel you have the tools to deal with, you can go again as well to your children's officer. But the important thing is that there is a concern here, and obviously the bullying as well. So that is your code of conduct, and if it isn't the coach who's seen this happen, then it would be going back to the coach and mentioning that it's happened, and maybe the coach would bring the group together and discuss, the code of conduct that the children actually signed up to, which was to respect each other, and also look at that whole issue of bullying as well, but in line with the code that the children have signed. Maybe it's just a matter of getting the children to read them out, or even doing something like that code of respect that the National Academy I mentioned did before. The next slide, where we get our values. So obviously we have our own personal values, family values, and then a breach of code of conduct that is put in place by different sports organisations and clubs that we're attached to. So we'll just have a look now at the different categories of abuse. So physical abuse is that which results in actual or potential physical harm from an interaction or lack of interaction. which is reasonably within the control of a parent or person in a position of responsibility, power, or trust. So these definitions are all based on the wording of the Children's First Bill from 2014. That bill has been enacted, but there are certain elements that have been enacted, or that act has been enacted, but there is still many elements of it that haven't been acted on. So it's not fully in place yet. Emotional abuse, normally to be found in the relationship between a parent, carer, and a child rather than in a specific event or pattern of events. It occurs when a child's developmental need for affection, approval, consistency, and security are not met. Unless other forms of abuse are present, it is rarely manifested in terms of physical signs or symptoms. So it can be one of the toughest ones to identify. Neglect in relation to a child, to deprive the child of adequate food, warmth, clothing, hygiene, supervision, safety, or medical care. Sexual abuse includes when a child is used by another person for his or her gratification or sexual arousal, or for that of others, including rape, exposure to pornography, sexual activity in the presence of the child, and child trafficking for the purpose of exploitation. Bullying should also be considered in a sports setting. So, significant harm. A child must be protected if she is suffering or is likely to suffer significant harm. This is the threshold for state intervention. Children First defines harm in relation to a child as A. Assault, ill treatment, or neglect of the child in a manner that seriously affects or is likely to seriously affect the child's health, development, or welfare. Took part in a workshop and they sat down and they said, well, maybe we don't do this, so maybe we'll do this in future. Like at the end of a coaching session, we'll all pick up the balls, because it was always a bit of moaning and things like that, and it kind of creates an atmosphere sometimes, and then especially when you have new children coming in and think, oh, you know, they're doing it, we'll do it, sort of thing. So it's really good to get the children involved in that. I mean, we only had 10, but all of the children, we did it up on a big flip chart, and all of the children signed it, we laminated it, and it was just part of their, or any further action taken. So the top two concerns were number 3 and 4. So number 3, a coach having sexual intercourse with one of his or her 17-year-old athletes. And this is a concern, obviously. Does everyone agree that that's a concern? Why do you think that it's, what's the main reason for it being a concern?
It's abusive position.
So it's exploitation. And what do you think the response should be?
Prison. And it depends on the age of the coach, right? I mean, there are different responses, I think. Need to inform the parents for a start.
Disciplinary action with regards to that coach, I think.
Does anyone think it should be reported?
Very hard on coaches.
Does anyone think it should be reported?
Oh, yeah.
Does everyone agree with that? Again, it's looking at reporting versus making, any accusation or being involved. You don't need to go that far, but highlighting it and reporting it is something that is necessary and would be seen as your duty of care as an adult involved in any youth organisation or even outside of the club. The response here, it says to inform the parents, to refer the coach or the volunteer to the organisation's guideline for good practice regarding sexual relationships with a youth player, suspend them pending external and then possibly an internal investigation,